Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Edison Club. Thank you for being here with me today as we are about to embark on our brand new journey of destruction.
Are you into high-rarity snobbery?
I am not worthy.
Or perhaps you prefer the common man's bargain hunt?
What the Yugi? Is that a Lila?
Normal summon Lumina, in-phase mill, wolf, wolf, wolf. Watch your opponent devolve into tears. Stack for plague spreader, make Brionic. Brio them into oblivion.
Why me?
Special summon Judgment Dragon, nuke everything. Does this sound appealing to you? Well, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Edison Club's ultimate Lightsworn guide.
What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Edison Club. Today I'm bringing you my 4th place finishing Kristya Sworn list from the Ultimate Time Wizard tournament held this past weekend in Richmond, Virginia. Round 1 was 7 rounds of Swiss with top cut, the next day top 8. I do have my matchups here. We'll go over those and talk about those one by one, and then we'll jump into the deck profile. Before we get started though, as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really just motivates me to keep going, getting better at the game, as well as content creation. So when I look and I see that you guys are hitting the bell and subscribing, it really means a lot to me. So definitely keep that up. And okay, without further ado, let's jump into our matchup. So round 1, I get paired up against Hero Beat, and it's not just any Hero Beat. It was against Jarrett or Jared. I can't ever remember. I'm pretty sure it's Jarrett. I just added him on Facebook, so I apologize if that's incorrect. But Jarrett Zimmerman, and if that name sounds familiar, well, that's because it should sound familiar. He's multiple-time YCS topper champion. He did, I believe he told me he got 3rd place at the Ultimate Time Wizard in Indy a couple weeks ago. Exceptionally good player. I really enjoyed our match. Really too long to go into details, but basically there was a time in game 2 where he had up Deep Fissure, Royal Oppression, Skill Drain with like Thunder King Ryo and Neo Salius, and my only play was to set Honest, and I basically said that it was like Mystic Mine at home because we drew and passed for probably about 15 turns before one of us decided to go for something. I tried to go for a push when I thought I had all the pieces. Didn't really account for the fact he had a Dark Bribe set. So we go to game 3 and we get there in game 3. He was awesome. I really want to play against him again. So yeah, that was Jared Zimmerman. Also, guys, my voice is like almost gone. Did a lot of talking over the weekend, so I might have some coughing here and there, and I do apologize for that. Round 2 was a 2-0 victory over Hero Frog, my friend Justin Baker, who unfortunately I go to locals with, and that always stinks when you play your friends that early on. But the deck naturally has a really good matchup against Hero Frogs, and it just did exactly what it was supposed to do in that matchup. Good games to you, Justin, as always. Round 3 was against Vayu, and that matchup is a little scary because that deck can just kill you out of nowhere. And I really took precautions for Vayu in the side, and I'll go ahead and just tell you what I was siding for Vayu because it plays into what I'm about to say. I did side in 2 Imperial Iron Walls for the Vayu matchup, and it was so good. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but basically my in-board in game 3, I had a JD Kristya with, I believe, another card and Imperial Iron Wall. So I was like, if I lose this game, I'm just going to start taking up competitive chess. I didn't write down his name, but if I played you and you were on Vayu in round 3, good game to you. Okay, so let's see. I'm going the wrong way here. That was round 3 against Vayu. Round 4, played against the man himself, Mac the Sack. No, I'm just kidding. I played against Tom Mac, and I've done a lot of online trading with Tom over the years. And I've never really talked to him that much in person, but he was paired up next to me like the past several rounds of this tournament. So we really got to talking a lot throughout the day. He's a really awesome guy. He completely just destroyed me. I lost to him 0-2, and he had his fancy little Neospatian Grand Mole that just kept bouncing all of my stuff back, and it was very sad for me, but good game to you, Tom Mack. Definitely a well-deserved victory. So at this point, I'm getting a little scared. like, oh no, I hope like my streak isn't ending. Round 5, I get paired up against fairies, and fairies being like Nova Summoner, Shining Angel, Kristya, all those things, all those shenanigans. And I've actually never played that matchup with Kristya. So I kind of just used the information I had from the Kristya mirror, kind of going into that. Like, I need to make sure that I have like Herald for his Herald. And going into like the side deck, I really didn't have anything to side deck against fairies. Like, I'm not going to put in Consecrated Light against fairies or anything like that. But I considered Royal Oppression, which sounds kind of silly, and I think it might actually be kind of silly, because I was just kind of going over like, what do I lose to against fairies? And it's like the big drops like Kristya. But I didn't put it in when I played against him, just because it only stops Kristya and I guess like Soul and Purity of Light if they're on that, because it doesn't stop their floaters. So I was actually kind of afraid of getting locked under my own oppression and him just infinitely floating into like DD Warrior Ladies and I can't do anything. So I didn't need it. I think I may have put in Cyber Dragons going second just to have like an extra bit of steam. So yeah, that was a 2-0 victory over fairies in round 5. And let's see, round 6 was Hero Frogs yet again with a 2-1 victory. He was a very awesome player too. He was really nice. I always enjoy when people are just very like inviting and welcoming. And we went to game 3, and on my very last turn, the turn I won, I had JD and Kristya. He was at 3,800. On his turn, he just set one back row and passed. So I was like, okay, well, I'm 99% sure that is definitely Regeki Break. And I had a Jane in my hand, and I didn't feel like I was in a place where I really wanted to respect Torrential, because it was a card he had ripped, and I was like, there's no way he drew Torrential off the top. I'm not even going to consider that. So I summoned Jane. The summon's fine, so it's not Torrential. He had already used Mirror Force. Mirror Force was gone. So I go JD attack directly for 3,000. On attack deck, he Regeki breaks my Kristya. Kristya goes back to top of deck, takes 3,000, goes to 800, and drops Gores. At this point, I'm kind of clenching my cheeks a little bit, because I'm like, oh, I didn't really consider like the old 1-2 buckle my shoe combo, Regeki break into Gores. But I had 2-step back row, and it was Call the Haunted and Imperial Iron Wall, because I actually put that in this matchup. And I fan my graveyard, and I have Graganith, the Lightsworn Dragon, with 5 Lightsworn names. So he's big enough. He's 3,500, and he does piercing. So I call the Haunted back to Graganith, attack over his Gores for 1,000 for game. It was really cool. My friend Austin Butcher was actually watching that happen. And at first I was like, oh no, this play really loses to Crow. But I was like, wait a minute, I have Iron Wall set. I'm so golden right now. So good job to you, Hero Frog player. I also did not write down your name. I apologize. Round 7 was a 2-1 victory over Diva Hero. He absolutely just bombed me in game 1, just dogged me, and we got the little reversal there, and we ended up taking that one. So Kristya and Iron Wall definitely played a part in that. Let's see, and then we had round 8, which was a 2-1 win over Blackwing. I found out that my opponent was on Blackwings the night before, and I'm sure he knew what I was on, because if you go to my channel, it's either this or Frogs, and there's infinitely more Lightsworn content than there is Frog content. But I was very afraid of this one because the Blackwing matchup is so strange for this deck. I've basically gotten no consistent results. It's like, definitely in my testing has been like 50-50. People say it's like higher than that. People say like Blackwing is like 65, like 35 or something like that. Like Blackwing should win more. But it's just, in my experience, it's just been whoever drew better has won. But took him to game 3 and won in game 3. We did a little thing where like I had Consecrated Light, Lumina, a very spicy card in my side deck, which is Suzuki Samurai number 2, which reads, once per turn, during your main phase, you can pay 800 life. And if you do until the end phase, spells and trap cards cannot be activated. It also has the same ruling as Cold Wave, where like they can't use stuff like Royal Oppression. And I had that guy, and I had Kristya. So I paid 800 for my little guy to Cold Wave. He chained Deck Devi, attributed his set Sirocco, hit my Lumina, hit my Consecrated Light, hit my Suzuki, didn't hit any of the cards in my hand, and didn't hit my Kristya. And at this point, he's at 3,800. So I'm like, what do I do? I need to win this turn, because he has so many cards in hand, he is just going to unload the next turn. I'm going to lose. So I look at my hand and I realize I have game. So I go tribute Kristya for Cyber Dragon and special summon Soul Purity and Light. Hit him for 4,100 for game. So congratulations. His name was also Michael, and he was a really nice guy as well. So I really enjoyed that. Round 9, I played against James Ark, who was on the Fish OTK deck, and we had a really good match. It was very short because just the nature of our decks. He's on OTK deck. I'm on a deck that isn't necessarily an OTK deck, but it can put up a lot of pressure very quickly. He beats me in game 1. Army Arm, Colossal, OTK. And in game 2, I did this really cool play where I had 2 Lightsworn names in my graveyard. I don't remember what they were. One of them was Shire. 2 Lightsworn names and 3 fairies. I had a Aaron on the field and a set Raikou against his triple dupe frog board. And I have 2 Kristyas in my hand, and I have JD and like maybe another card, but that's the main cards we're going to talk about here. I have 2 Kristyas, Judgment Dragon. So I was trying to think, like, how do I get around this? So I was like, I can flip a Raikou, mill 3, hope I hit a 4th fairy, and no more fairies, hit 2 Lightsworn names. Like, that I would have to hit a fairy and 2 Lightsworn names. It would make a dupe frog miss timing, which is nice. Then I saw, like, the craziest line I think I've ever done. So I attributed my Aaron and my Raikou to tribute set Kristya, and then special summon Judgment Dragon, because the tribute set gave me the other 2 names I needed. Nuke the field. Kristya goes to grave because it's not face up, and then he got all 3 of his dupe frog searches, and then I summoned the other Kristya in my hand because the Kristya that died was my 4th fairy. So that was a line that I feel like 6 months ago I wouldn't have seen. Then we go to game 3. He inevitably ends up getting game 3. I didn't really have a lot of experience against Fish OTK because, let's just be honest, who does? And it was just very unfortunate. My first experience with it was against James Ark, like one of the best players in the format. But if I had it to do over, in game 3, he did like Substitute Swap Frog combo where he like tribute and I orange lighted there. And I think that I should have just held my orange light for Coelacanth. And I don't know if I would have won because who knows what could have happened. But I think that just holding that for the push turn would have been a little bit better. And then the last round was against old Mac the Sack. Yet again, Tom Mac played him again for the 2nd time of the tournament. And we had an awesome match. It was a lot of fun. And he ended up getting it 2-1. So congratulations to Tom Mac. He ended up getting 3rd place, taking home one of the jumbo-sized Minervas. And it was a great experience, guys. I really had so much fun. I met so many cool people. I got to talk to Fraser Smith, who I always think a lot of. He's a really cool guy. I really enjoy talking to him. Obviously, hanging out with all of my friends, meeting new people. I met a few people that were fans of the channel. And that's always awesome. So without further ado, done a lot of talking, but I wanted to give you guys my little recap. We're going to go ahead and go into the deck. I'm going to check and see what time is at here. And we're at 12 minutes, so we're okay. All right, so starting things off, I'm not going to go and explain things that are very obvious, okay? So we have Lumina, Jane, Arcus, Aaron, and Graganeth. These are all the one of Lightsworn names I played. These are very standard. We don't really even have to discuss those. I'm not going to waste time. Yes, haha, Lumina's at 1. We'd play more if we could. Yeah, everyone knows that. Graganeth. I went away from Graganeth for a little while, and I'm so glad I put this card back in. I think this card is a staple for me in Lightsworn and Kristya Sworn. It's just so nice that you have like a card that's so high impact off of Glorious Illusion. Like, it is not uncommon for you to summon this guy and him be over 3k, and sometimes that 3k Pierce can just really just get you a game. And he mills 3, and I'm just a really big fan of Graganeth. I definitely would not have beaten the Hero Frog guy if I wasn't on Graganeth, and he just continues to prove himself every time we play. I know it's like kind of a meme. People kind of say like this guy kind of sucks or whatever, but I mean, that's fine. This card keeps overperforming for me, so I'm going to keep playing him. And then the non-engine one-ofs, we have Card Trooper and Plague Spreader Zombie. Once again, there's not a lot to say. Card Trooper is just raiding Lightsworn Monk at home. Mills during the main phase, gets you some draws. Plague Spreader, it's pretty obvious why we play Plague Spreader. Then we have 2 Judgment Dragons. Haha, we play 3 if we could. Insane card. We have 2 Soul Purity and Light. The original build that I do believe was James Ark played like triple this, triple Kristya, and I've just really been a big fan of the 2-ofs. This card's really good. There's not a normal summon in the format that can attack over it, makes them lose 300, sets up your graveyard. Sometimes you can do cool things like play around DD Crow with it. Like one time, someone crowed my 4th fairy, so I like banished 2 Lightsworns to summon Soul Purity, and tributed Soul of Purity for Celestia to get the 4th fairy for Kristya. So you can do some pretty cool stuff with Soul of Purity and Light. And it just stands alone really well. It's like your baby Chaos Sorcerer. And 2 Honest, we don't really have to discuss Honest. And 2 Kristya. I will die on the hill that I think in this build, I think 2 is perfect. I really think that 3 is just too much. You don't really ever want to open Kristya. I have played games where I turn 1 to Kristya, but it was probably out of the 1,000 games I played with Kristya, that was 1 time. So I think 2 is great. You see her when you need to see her. And I know like some people say like you want to see as much as possible. That's actually just not true. Like I don't ever want to draw multiple Kristyas in my opening hand because I'm just going to lose. Like these don't stack like Judgment Dragon. Like if Kristya just locked out the opponent, then obviously that would be insane. But I think that 2 has been perfect for me. I won't go to 3, and I definitely wouldn't go to 1. So then we have 2 Lilas and 2 Celestias. This is pretty standard. Some people up these to like 3 and 3. I've seen like 2, 3, you know, some combination of 2 to 3 of these. I think these were just fine. Celestia, once again, can be a little bit dead. You don't really want to see multiples of her. If I was going to go to 3 of one of them in this particular list, I think I'd pick 3 Lila. Lila was actually really insane all weekend. And Lila gets you around stuff like Royal Oppression, which is really nice too. Breaker the Magical Warrior. Okay, this is one people really talked about and asked me about is Double Shire. Times2 originally played Double Shire in his list from RBT Merino Valley, and that's when I started testing this a lot. And Shire actually wasn't as good at this tournament as Shire was in tournaments prior and in testing. Like, a lot of times I would summon this card and it would be 3,000, like in testing. And it didn't really ever get that big this weekend. But there are a lot of times where you'll like charge for this to get a fairy for Orange Light. There are some times where you just summon this guy. He's like, or she's like 1,600, 1,800. It's just really nice. The main idea of playing like multiple Shires is just it's a Lightsworn and a fairy, and sometimes you can do stuff like in the late game. You can like special a Kristya, add back Shire. Normal the Shire, and the Shire is like over 2,000, so it just puts up a lot of pressure. It's like basically the equivalent of like Kristya being able to add back Soul Purity and Light and summon Soul Purity. So yeah, this being like 4,800 is really nice. So I was a big fan of 2. I would still continue to play 2, even though, like I said, she didn't get nearly as big as she normally does. But yeah, 2 was completely fine. I didn't dislike 2 Shire. And then we have 3 Raikou and we have 3 Herald. There's not a lot to really say here. And Herald was insane. Every time I had Herald, it was so good. I'm also going to go over some of my side decking stuff, some side decking tips at the end of this video. And we'll kind of talk about how I feel about Orange Light in certain matchups. We'll also talk about how I oversided some matchups. Okay, so going into spells, we have Reinforcing the Army, Charge, Heavy Storm, 2 Gold Sark, triple Solar Recharge. Most of this is pretty standard. You don't really have a lot of variance here. I did decide to main deck the Heavy Storm. I like it more in the main than the side. And I did decide to main deck Rhoda, because Rhoda does have a lot of utility. Rhoda can get Jane to run over big stuff, or it can go get Aaron to spin stuff back to deck. So normally I like playing this with like Garoth and Necrogardna, because those are 2 more targets alongside something like Junk Synchron. But I really wanted to have this card as an option to be able to go get Suzuki Samurai post side as well, which we'll also talk about. So that's the spells. And moving into the traps, we have Double Beckoning Light, Call of the Haunted, Lightsworn Barrier, and 2 Illusion. All these traps were good except for Barrier. I'm pretty sure I only activated Barrier 1 time the whole weekend, and that was against my last round opponent, Tom Mack. And it did buy me a turn, so I mean, I guess it did its job, but these were all very good, and this one I just unfortunately didn't see. This was originally Mirror Force, and I wanted to do Barrier because I felt like the games I would lose were the games where I just simply never got to like start playing, and I kind of thought this card kind of did that for me. And this card went from being like Mirror Force to Needlebug Nest to Lightsworn Barrier, and I think you could play any of those, honestly. It would be fun. That rounds off the main deck. We're going to go through the extra deck very quickly because I don't want to waste a lot of time on it. It's Mistworm, Stardust, Colossal, Thought Ruler, Avenging Knight Parshath, Ancient Sacred Wyvern, Black Rose Dragon, Brionac, Tempest Magician, Goyo Guardian, Flameveil Urquazas, Magical Android, Catastor, Armory Arm, Khmer Tech. Not a lot to say there. Most of our extra decks in Edison format, they all look the same. This one just gets to play stuff like Avenging Knight and Ancient Sacred Wyvern. who I never summoned all weekend alongside Tempest Magician. On the side, we have 2 copies of Cyber Dragon, 2 copies of Consecrated Light, 1 Suzuki Samurai, that's all the monsters. Then we have 1 MST and 1 Lightning Vortex, 1 book, 1 1-for-1. Then for traps, we have 2 Royal Oppression, 2 Royal Decree, 2 Imperial Iron Wall. We played all the royal cards. We're going to talk about all these a little bit individually. So Cyber Dragons, obviously this is good against Machina, it's good against Hero Beat, it's good going second in general, just being able to like eat bottomless, kind of functions as like MST in a way. And Consecrated Light, because the Blackwing matchup can be really terrible, but this just brings their ceiling down really low to where you can keep up with them, even if it only makes it a couple turns. Okay, the card everyone's wanted to know about, Suzuki Samurai. Had a lot of controversy around Suzuki Samurai over the weekend. People asking me questions, people saying it was good, people saying it was bad. This is not the be-all, end-all of like cold wave type cards. Basically, I wanted to side heavy for Blackwing. I felt like my worst matchup was Blackwing. I felt like that was the deck I dropped the most games to, so I sided very heavy for Blackwing. I had these 3 cards on top of these, on top of 1-for-1, and then like MST, obviously. I wanted to be able to do things like summon a Lightsworn. If the summon wasn't successful, let's just say they bottomless, I wanted to be able to play 1-for-1 and still summon like my Consecrated Light. So I felt like just going double light and 1-for-1 was just kind of narrow. I didn't really feel like it was all that great. So I went and I looked at all of the level 1 targets that exist within Edison format. I looked at every level 1 monster. And there were a few targets that were okay, but this guy was the overall best pick for what the deck was trying to do. So you can get this guy off Rhoda, you can get this guy off of 1-for-1, which is nice. So it's a secondary 1-for-1 target. Let's say you've already used Consecrated Light, or you're just in a situation where you need to like cold wave the field. That's where this guy comes in. You pay 800, it cold waves until the end phase, which is all you need. A lot of people were saying stuff like, oh, well, you can still respond to it. You can still respond to it. You can still respond to cold wave as well. The thing about it is I'm not special summoning Judgment Dragon and then going normal summon Suzuki Samurai. I'm going Rhoda or 1-for-1, summon this guy, pay 800, and if they chain Icarus attack or they chain Torrential, that's completely fine. This guy has done his job. He has cold waved the field for Judgment Dragon to summon out, not get hit with Royal Oppression, not get hit with Starlight Road, not get hit with Bottomless, so forth and so forth. So that's why I picked to play this guy. He overperformed in the Blackwing matchup. I was a huge fan of this guy, and I would play him again going forward. I was blown away with how good this guy actually worked out for me. So everyone can always do what they want to do for themselves, but I was very happy with Suzuki Samurai. That's those side deck cards. Then the other ones, I wanted to play Floodgates that kind of brought the other deck's ceilings down to my level. So Iron Wall and Royal Oppression. Oppression was for stuff like Diva Hero, Quick Draw, which I've always said this, Lightsworn has a terrible matchup against Quick Draw because you can't deal with Drill Warrior. Stuff like that. Iron Wall was for things like Value Turbo, Hero Frogs. I do put this in against Hero Frogs because it shuts off Caius, it shuts off Miracle Fusion, and it shuts off DD Crow, which is heavily sided for me and Frogs. Like most Frog players, side 3 Crow. So this card just kind of does it all. It's kind of like Mask of Restrict and Royal Oppression at the same time because it shuts off Miracle Fusion and it shuts off Caius, which is the main one that you lose to. It is susceptible to stuff like Regeki Break, Ryza, obviously heavy MST, but everything else that you could side deck for the most part is the same way. Like you can play Restrict to stop the Monarchs completely, but it doesn't stop Crow, it doesn't stop Miracle Fusion, and I thought that this, for what my deck was trying to do, was just the best. Also, too, when you play this against Vayu, it's really nice because it turns off Vayu, obviously. It turns off Necrogardna. It also turns off Bottomless, turns off Allure, turns off D-Prison. There are a lot of things this turns off. You can actually, against Diva Hero, you can actually side these in tangent with one another. If you wanted to do like these 2 in 1, or you wanted to do these 2 in 1, or if you want to do all 4, it's up to you and what game you're in and how you're feeling. But, this card stops Miracle Fusion, stops Malicious, stops opposing Gold Sarks, And the main thing about it that I really liked that I've already mentioned was how much this can shut them down while also like making my deck better, because now you can't DD Crow me and you can't soul release me. So this was fantastic. I was so happy with these, and I was never a believer in oppression in this deck until this weekend. So like when I played against the Diva Hero guy, I did a play where like he had Armageddon Knight, I made a Goyo, ran it over, used the effect to send Plague, main phase 2 stack for Plague, make Brio, and then set Royal Oppression. So I have Goyo, Brio, Oppression, and he like summoned his Infernal Prodigy, and I flipped Oppression and couldn't do anything. And then I had JD in my hand, so all I had to do was like Brio, pitch, bounce, summon JD. And if for some reason I didn't win, I can just set Oppression and flip it again on the next turn. So that was really good there. And the last two cards here, we have Book of Moon and Vortex. And these were kind of my just generic outs to stuff like, say, Fossil Dyna, Vanity's Fiend, Quackimiru Drago, anything like that. Vortex was insane. I actually don't know if I activated Book all weekend. I sided it in against any deck that could potentially flood me out with stuff. But there's the potential that Book could just be another Lightning Vortex. And there's also potential that Lightning Vortex could be another Book of Moon. Just depends, like, sometimes this discard can get you the last fairy or the last name that you need. And it just moves stuff out of the way. So these two were really good. So a lot of people have asked me, like, how do you side deck with Lightsworn? And it's actually incredibly easy. You just go through your deck and think about the decks that you're playing against. And also, what cards are you putting into the deck? So, like, if I'm putting in Iron Walls, I probably don't want to keep in my gold sarcophaguses, or at least both of them. I also probably don't want to keep in multiple Soul of Purity and Lights. So you can do things like you can remove these, you can remove these, or you can do what I did, and I would remove like 1 and 1. Because that would mean like you only want to see these like earlier in the game. You never want to see them in the mid to the late. So you just kind of have to think about what you're putting in and what you're taking out. You also have to think about what you're playing against. So if you're playing against a deck like Vayu, or you're playing against a deck like Black Wings or Diva Hero, you might not want to keep Gold Sarcophagus in your deck if you're going second, because a lot of times you're just going to get rushed down. It's the same for Blackwing, if I didn't mention that already. I do keep these in almost always if I'm going first, unless I put in Iron Wall, because I don't ever want to see it later when I have Iron Wall up. But every time I go second against those type of decks, I would take these out because it's too slow. A lot of times you end up dying before you get to your card that you gold sarked for, and no one likes that. So like for this deck, for Black Wings, I would put in 1 Space Typhoon. We'll talk about Cyber Dragon in a minute. The 1 Samurai, the 1-for-1, the Consecrated Light, and the Royal Decrees. So this is 7 cards. Now this is actually a lot of cards to be siding in for one matchup. But if your deck struggles in one matchup, it's okay to kind of overside for those. So I don't want to be keeping in a ton of trap cards with Decree. So I would remove double Lightsworn Barrier, or I'm sorry, Glorious Illusion. I would remove Lightsworn Barrier. I would take out 1 Herald of Orange Light. I would take out 1 Card Trooper, 1 Graganeth, and what is the last card that I would normally take out? This is 3, 4, 5, 6. The last card that I would normally take out would be, oftentimes I would take out Plague Spreader Zombie. And there's a reason why I would take these out in this matchup. So obviously we're going to move these over. We've already talked about the side deck cards. We kind of know what they do. There's a reason why I would take these out. These come out because you don't want a ton of trap cards with Decree. I take out 1 Orange Light because it's not the best in the early game against Blackwing, but there are times when this card is really good against Blackwing, when they go for their Blizzard plays, if they go for like a Sirocco Pampabora. Sometimes you can use this to stop Kalut. You can use this to stop like Brio. You can use it to stop Black Rose. So there are times where this card is really good, but it's not good enough to keep in all 3. And then Card Trooper, while Trooper does mill you 3, he kind of just does sit there and just get used for food for Shura. So you don't normally need Trooper in this matchup. And then Graganeth mainly shines when you're using him with Glorious Illusion. So since we're taking out Illusion, we're not really going to be using Graganeth that much. And also, Blackwings don't really set cards that much. So Graganeth doesn't have as much value there. And then Plague Spreader Zombie is a card I take out just in case the Blackwing player is on DD Crow, because it does really stink to stack for Plague and get hit with Crow. It also comes up where you mill Plague and you can't use it because you have Consecrated Light. So oftentimes I would just take out something like Plague Spreader Zombie. So I'm not going to go over every matchup individually. It's also important to point out that when I would go second against Black Wings, I would side everything I just said I sided, but I would also swap Gold Sarks for Cyber Dragons to go second. So do remember that, what I said about Gold Sarks going second against decks that are fast. But yeah, you need to look at your side deck. You need to go through your main deck and say, what cards do I not need? And if I'm playing against Frogs, probably don't need Heavy Storm. If I'm not playing in a matchup where Suzuki Samurai is fantastic, I could consider taking out Reinforcement of the Army. So if you're playing against, say, like Frogs again, you could probably take out one Raikou because you don't really want to be setting cards in the Monarch matchup. Just completely depends on what you're playing against. So look through your deck. If you complete a game and you have no idea what to side, go through your deck first and say, okay, what do I absolutely not want in this matchup whatsoever? Because there's always something that you can put in that might be slightly less bad. Like Cyber Dragon is a better card against Frogs than Heavy Storm is. It's not a great card against Frogs, but you would have more luck with a Cyber Dragon than you would Heavy Storm. Obviously, don't run around siding Cyber Dragon for Frogs. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just try to make your main deck not so dead post-side. You just have to know what cards are good into what matchups. So guys, that's it. That was the 4th place finishing Kristya Sworn list from the Ultimate Time Wizard Tournament in Richmond, Virginia. This is my highest placing in like a large event so far in Edison, and I still have a long way to go, but I've also come a long way. So shout outs to all of my friends, shout outs to the Edison Club, shout outs to anyone I play Yu-Gi-Oh with, all of the guys, just to name a few. All my friends like Ty Payne, Austin Wood, Blake Bowman, Cole Ayers, Austin Butcher. There's too many of them to name. Shouts to all the pro players that I play with, like Raikoko, Ryan, Frazier, Cameron, Mitchell Nouse, Hydropump. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. There's too many to name. Shouts to all of you guys, because I wouldn't be where I am without, whether it be your content, whether it be like messaging you and saying, hi, I need some help. I actually messaged a True Hero the morning of Top Cut. He gave me some pointers. He actually told me, because my original plan for Blackwing was to take out Call of the Haunted because I was putting in Decrease. He actually told me, he said, keep in Call of the Haunted. He said, you'll really want Call of the Haunted to bring back your stuff. Call of the Haunted was good in that matchup. So I definitely have to thank him a lot for that. Okay, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. This is Mike from the Edison Club, signing out until the next one.